Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Elizabeth Herr. Here are the top 5 things to know this Tuesday. Number 1, the impeachment investigation expanding.
ABC News has confirmed that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was on the July phone call when President Trump repeatedly asked the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. President Trump is now looking to uncover the identity of the whistleblower who triggered the impeachment investigation.
Meanwhile, the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has now been subpoenaed by House lawmakers. Number 2, the world of college athletics is buzzing about a landmark new California law.
The Fair Pay to Play Act opens the door to endorsement deals for college athletes. It also allows them to be paid for use of their names and images without losing their amateur status.
The law takes effect in 2023. The NCAA says the measure will destroy the distinction between amateurs and pros, and it is considering its next move. No word yet, though, if those steps will include legal action.
On to number 3, a California man is charged with spying for China after an elaborate FBI sting operation.
Prosecutors say Edward Pang was posing as a tour guide in San Francisco when he collected U.S. national security information. He allegedly picked up digital memory cards left at hotels in California and Georgia and then delivered those cards to Beijing after paying off an informant.
Pang is due in court tomorrow. He could face 10 years in prison if convicted.
We head to Hong Kong for number 4. Tens of thousands of anti-government protesters have taken to the streets, defying orders to stay home. Police scuffled with demonstrators during one outbreak of violence earlier today. The protest comes as China today celebrates 70 years of communist rule.
There was a show of force in Beijing today. The Chinese military showed off its most advanced weapons, including a new hypersonic ballistic nuclear missile designed to evade America's anti-missile shields. And finally, number 5, adults in the U.S. are apparently not making the grade when it comes to reading.
A new survey finds more than a quarter of adults have not read a book in the past year, not even part of a book in either print or electronic form.
27% of adults say they have not read any books in the past 12 months, up from 19% in 2011.
We've got much more to talk about coming your way.
Read a book, America. We say good morning on this 1st of October. Let's get right to the big story. Those new details overnight from the impeachment investigation as President Trump pushes to learn the name of the whistleblower in the Ukraine scandal.
ABC News has now confirmed Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was on the phone call when President Trump urged the leader of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. Meanwhile, House Democrats have now subpoenaed Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney.
Let's get right to ABC's Serena Marshall, who's in Washington with the latest. Serena, good morning.
Kenneth, Elizabeth, good morning to both of you. Neither the White House nor the president have yet to pinpoint what exactly in the whistleblower complaint about that phone call was inaccurate. The president simply maintaining that the call was perfect.
In a new twist, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also on that controversial phone call with the president and the president of Ukraine, multiple sources told ABC News. 1 week ago, when he was asked about that call.
What do you know about those conversations?
So you just gave me a report about a high-seek whistleblower campaign, none of which I've seen.
That revelation as the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, received subpoenas from 3 separate House committees. In a statement, Giuliani said it raises substantial constitutional and legal issues, as well as attorney-client and other privileges. But Sunday, he seemed to imply his efforts to push Ukraine to investigate the Bidens were at the behest of the U.S. government.
I did not do this on my own. I did it at the request of the State Department.
As for the president, he's not backing down on his quest to ID the whistleblower.
Mr. President, do you now know who the whistleblower is, sir?
Well, we're trying to find out about a whistleblower when you have a whistleblower that reports things that were incorrect.
That's something the whistleblower's attorney says would be against federal law. The president has repeatedly claimed because information was reported secondhand, it was not to be believed. But we have now learned the whistleblower had direct knowledge of certain alleged conduct, according to the intelligence community's inspector general. The statement, part of a rebuke to the president's claim the whistleblower rules were changed before it was submitted. The statement explaining there was never a rule or law that said information could not be reported secondhand.
House Democrats who are leading the investigation say they now have a tentative deal to meet with the whistleblower, as the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says if the House were to vote for an impeachment, the Senate would have no choice but to take it up. Kenneth, Elizabeth.
Serena, let's talk about this tweet from the president, quoting a supporter who said impeaching and removing him from office will, quote, cause a civil war-like fracture in this country, in this nation from which our country will never heal. That brought a rare rebuke from a Republican.
Yeah, Kenneth, these Republicans haven't been super vocal speaking out against the president, especially when it comes to this whistleblower complaint. But that rebuke over that tweet came from a Republican congressman from Illinois, a veteran. His name's Adam Kinzinger, and he said, I have visited nations ravaged by civil war. I have never imagined such a quote to be repeated by a president. This is beyond repugnant. Strong words from a Republican against the president's tweet there.
Strong words indeed, Serena. Thank you. Now, when it comes to the American public, 52% of registered voters say they support the impeachment inquiry and 45% are against it.
In that same Quinnipiac poll, it was split. 47% say the president should be impeached and removed, and 47% say he should not.
And we are now learning the president asked other foreign powers to help Attorney General William Barr as he reviews the origins of that Russia investigation. Here's ABC's Brad Milkey.
Hey, that's right. You know, in that rough transcript of President Trump with the leader of Ukraine, there is this moment where President Trump says, you should speak to my personal attorney and the attorney general. Well, we've now learned that President Trump has dropped William Barr's name with a number of world leaders. An official at the Justice Department tells ABC News that just a few weeks ago, President Trump told the leaders of Australia and Italy that he's trying to learn how the Russia investigation started in the first place, and that they should help William Barr investigate it. I spoke to ABC senior national correspondent Terry Moran, and he told me the key question here is whether Barr is acting as America's top prosecutor or as President Trump's private eye.
I think you can make a case that this is the president operating in the national interest, saying no president should ever go through this. What happened? How is the intelligence community working to generate such a false story? That would be the president's perspective. The odd thing is that the entire Justice Department can do this. And in fact, there's a U.S. attorney that's been assigned by Attorney General Barr to do this investigation. Why is the Attorney General flying around the world doing the president's bidding like this? It's unbecoming, perhaps, but they will make the case that it's a legitimate inquiry.
And you might remember a couple weeks ago, Attorney General Barr was in Italy. The DOJ would not explain why. Well, now we know that visit included discussions about this project regarding the Russia investigation. We'll have a lot more on Start Here later this morning. Listen on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. Kenneth, Liz?
Brad, thank you. And former National Security Advisor John Bolton is speaking out against President Trump's approach to North Korea.
In his first public comments since he was ousted from his position, Bolton criticized the president without mentioning him by name, saying talks with Kim Jong-un had only benefited North Korea. And he warned that Kim has no plans to denuclearize.
The strategic decision that Kim Jong-un is operating through is that he will do whatever he can to keep a deliverable nuclear weapons capability and to develop and enhance it further. Under current circumstances, he will never give up the nuclear weapons voluntarily.
Bolton said the U.S. needs to focus its attention on stopping nuclear proliferation on the Korean peninsula, but the president's approach have not resulted in any gains.
Republican Congressman Chris Collins of New York is resigning ahead of an expected guilty plea in an insider trading case. Collins was one of President Trump's earliest supporters in Congress. He won re-election last year even after he was accused of sharing inside information from a biotech company. Collins served on the company's board of directors. He and his son dumped their stocks before they tanked, avoiding hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses.
The recent arrest of two 6-year-olds in Orlando, Florida, resulted in an officer being fired, but it also drew attention to a stunning crime statistic.
The FBI reports that child arrests may be more common than you might think. The Bureau found that between 2013 and 2017, nearly 27,000 children under the age of 10 were arrested in the U.S. An organization that trains law enforcement agencies in how to handle young children calls that number of arrests ridiculous.
A 48-year-old man is fighting for his life after falling into a thermal pool at the Old Faithful Geyser in Yellowstone National Park.
A park official says the man was walking near the geyser late Sunday night without a flashlight when he tripped into a hot spring. He suffered severe burns and is listed in critical condition. Park rangers suspected the victim had been drinking. They later found a shoe, hat, and a beer can near Old Faithful. The man could face charges for entering a restricted area of Yellowstone.
Police say that fatal shooting of an NYPD officer was caused by friendly fire. Officer Brian Mulkeen and the armed suspect were in a violent struggle when responding officers fired in their direction. Investigators now say the 2 bullets that killed the 7-year member of the force were fired by NYPD weapons. The suspect was shot and killed by police.
Today marks 2 years since the Las Vegas concert massacre. 58 people were killed and hundreds wounded when a gunman opened fire from his suite at the Mandalay Bay Resort. The victims will be honored today with events and memorials across the Las Vegas area. A sunrise ceremony, which will include 58 seconds of silence, is among the planned events.
A desperate search for survivors is going on right now after a bridge collapse in Taiwan. The collapse sent an oil tanker onto the boats that were in the water below. At least 6 people were believed to be trapped on one of those boats. 10 people were hospitalized, several of them with serious injuries. The collapse happened just hours after a typhoon swept across parts of Taiwan. And right now, though, it's unclear if that storm was part of the reason for the bridge coming down.
And the start of October also marks the beginning of Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
The disease is the most common cancer in women and affects 1 out of every 8 women in the U.S. It also strikes a very small percentage of men. Experts emphasize early detection is key to beating the disease. And this month, you will see a lot of people wearing pink to show support.
And coming up, tens of thousands are taking to the streets in Hong Kong, the city bracing for violence as China celebrates 70 years of communist rule.
But first, California's governor signing a law that would allow college athletes to be paid after this. Welcome back. We turn now to the potential game changer in college sports. A new law in California would allow student athletes to sign endorsement deals and hire agents. The law defies a long-standing rule that bans college players from getting paid, even as universities bring in billions of dollars in revenue.
This morning, a possible game changer in the big business of college sports.
This is one of the most significant days in the history of intercollegiate athletics.
College athletes bring in billions of dollars for universities, but they never see a penny of it. NCAA rules do not allow athletes to be paid beyond the costs of attending a university through scholarships. But now, California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed the so-called Fair Pay for Play law while appearing on LeBron James's HBO show Uninterrupted.
Not once did they talk about the needs of these kids.
Will they even listen to you? Will they listen to the other side?
They're going after I sign this.
The new law does not mean players will be directly paid from the universities. It means college athletes in California could hire agents, get shoe deals or other endorsements, and get paid for signing autographs or memorabilia. The debate over paying college athletes has gotten more heated in recent years, with athletes like NBA star Draymond Green arguing that colleges have capitalized off their talent.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of seeing people get ripped off. I'm tired of seeing these college athletes being ripped off.
The NCAA admits that improvement needs to happen, but is defending its business model, saying this new law already is creating confusion for current and future student athletes, coaches, administrators, and campuses, and not just in California. The billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, is speaking out against the California law, saying it turns athletes into employees.
When it comes to paying players as employees, then you have to ask yourself, what happens if they get fired? What happens if you wanted to fire them? Do we want to start firing student athletes?
Critics also say the law would give California schools an unfair recruiting advantage, but analysts predict other states will soon follow suit.
For the first time, someone is fighting back. Someone is saying to the NCAA, you can't rule college athletics in the same tired, hackneyed way.
The law doesn't take effect until 2023. The NCAA says it is considering next steps, but no word yet if those steps will include legal action.
So that's our question of the day. What do you think about college athletes potentially being allowed to be paid for endorsements? Tell us in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live. Let us know what you think. A lot of people have some strong feelings over this. We saw what Mark Cuban, he's not going to comment on this, but still. He's not going to go on our ABC News Facebook site and comment, but he's already commented. Who knows? We already know what he thinks, but what do you guys think? Because a lot of people say athletes, obviously, when you're using their likeness and all those other things, they should be paid.
Yeah. Well,
if the opportunity is there. So
if the school's making billions off of these kids,
right?
I mean, I say kids, but I guess
they're younger than us. We can say kids. Hey, moving on. China is celebrating 70 years of communism today with a big parade in Beijing, but the anniversary has security forces in Hong Kong bracing for new anti-government protests. So let's go across the pond to Julia McFarlane in the London Bureau for the latest. Julia, good morning.
Morning, Kenneth. Yes, it was October the 1st, 1949, when the chair of the Communist Party, Mao Zedong, stood in the exact same spot in Tiananmen Square watching over a military parade. Quite different from the one we saw today. Of course, 70 years ago, the day of the founding of the Communist Party, the Chinese could only afford about 15 aircraft back then. Huge difference with that strong military show of force we saw today. Some experts believe that up to a third of the Chinese ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles were on show today, including new weapons such as a missile that could reach up to 15,000 kilometers. That is enough to hit anywhere in America, not just the West Coast. Now, this is obviously a big show force for the Chinese. They have invested in their army, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, up by 83% in recent years, and a lot of that hardware on show today alongside 15,000 troops on the streets of Beijing. But you're right to point out, of course, that a lot of the world's eyes will be looking on Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong there have been tens of thousands of protesters on the streets, possibly more than that. A lot of people are still out, still demanding their 5 key asks of the government, including full steps to withdraw that controversial bill. They want Carrie Lam to step down, and they want full suffrage for Hong Kong elections. Now, a lot of people, they've been singing a lot of patriotic songs. They've been holding flags, the Hong Kong flag of that flower stained in blood, and changing the colors of the flag to black. That means, they say, to show that democracy has died in Hong Kong. So some worrying scenes. A lot of protesters have been seen strapping on body armor. So these protests taking an ever darker turn.
All right, and back there in England, Julia, a pub is hosting a rare gathering of people named Nigel. So what's this all about?
Kind of, this is a I love this story. I'm sorry, I love this story. So this all began in 2016 when the ONS, the Office for National Statistics in England, they came out with a study that showed in 2016 there were 0 babies called Nigel. Now, a certain Nigel who saw that, he was quite affronted by that, and so he launched this campaign to get as many Nigels as he could to come to the pub for a drink and all celebrate being called Nigel. Now, this was a Facebook ad that went viral, and actually hundreds of Nigels turned up. 433 Nigels came to this event at the Fleece Inn in Worcestershire in England to celebrate Nigelness. As Nigel, now they're all called Nigel, so if I quote any of them, they're all going to be called Nigel, so that's going to be a bit confusing. But anyway, so the main Nigel Smith, who organizes, he said that I've always felt that the name is much maligned. People would say to me when I was young, Nigel, that's got to be a joke name, hasn't it? So it was just to get a few Nigels together in the room to celebrate Nigel stories and celebrate our Nigelness. Now, there was a Nigel that came all the way from Texas, guys. And Nigel crossed the Atlantic to join his fellow Nigels in the pub. Sadly, they said there were no Nigelas that came along, unfortunately. They did try to get Nigella Lawson, the domestic goddess chef here in the UK. Sadly, she didn't come. But another sort of little anecdote I love from this is that the local MP is called Nigel. MP Nigel Huddleston came along as well. So,
I was going to say, I heard it got a little political because apparently the reason they're One thought was the reason there haven't been that many Nigels because of the Brexit guy, Nigel.
The Brexit guy. I was hoping we would.
No, I can always make you talk about Brexit if I can.
No, but do you know what? It is interesting because 2016 now, not to draw any conclusions, but 2016 was, of course, the date of that hugely contested, controversial Brexit referendum. And there was one Nigel who was pretty prominent that year. Also, no babies being called Nigel. But that these guys here in the Fleece Inn, they wanted to take back control of their Nigelness, shall we say?
Well, word on the street is that at that big party, one Nigel said that it was great, and then Nigel also said that it was not that good, and then there was another Nigel who was like, okay, you get the joke. Lots of Nigels.
Yeah, lots of Nigels.
Lots of Nigels.
Can you imagine telling stories of that night from years to come? Nigel said this, and then
But
Nigel,
which
and then
Nigel?
Nigel. Yeah.
We got to get into descriptive there. Hey.
One thing that was nice, they decided to come up with a collective noun for Nigels, and they came up with a niggle of Nigels, which I think is delightful.
I think I'm going to leave it right there.
I was going to say, Julia McFarland,
Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so let's check our notifications, starting with this out-of-control delivery vehicle at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Just keeps doing donuts there on the tarmac while workers try to figure out how to stop it. Then one of them gets an idea. He jumps onto another vehicle and crashes it into the one that seemed possessed right there, and bam, stopped it in its tracks. A few water bottles spilled out, but no one was hurt.
No one was hurt, and we have a new world record. This real-life fruit ninja sliced a record number of grapes on this balance board.
You know, we actually did try this.
We did.
Yeah, on the overnight show World News Now. But we didn't have a sword. We had a plastic knife.
Okay, and how did it go?
That's how it went.
We looked so
I really thought I could do it. I really did. I thought I was.
I think you got one.
Ninja skills.
You got one.
Just threw it into my mouth.
That wasn't bad.
Hey, next, watch this man flipping out. Wait for it. There it is. Wow.
Ooh, that's cool.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
my.
That's some core exercise right there.
That
Very
is-
strong core.
Yeah.
And he's still going. We're going to leave him. He's going to still be going, but we're going to move on to these two people in the surveillance video who are accused of putting porn on a digital billboard outside Detroit. The racy images were on display for about 15 minutes above a highway in Auburn Hills, Michigan, Saturday night. Police say the pair broke into a shack which houses the computer that controls the billboard, then hacked right on into the system. The suspects are
Still on the loose.
and still giggling this morning, I'm sure.
But, you know, they might be laughing, but police,
No,
not laughing.
could be a felony if they're caught.
Absolutely.
Hey, and for a couple of 4-year-olds from Ohio, all they wanted was just a little bit of money.
So they set up a lemonade stand, and as you can probably guess, things just took off from there. Will Gantz has that story.
When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And if you're 4-year-old Beatrice or her best friend Jack, then you set up a lemonade stand.
Give people the lemonade, and sometimes we drink the lemonade.
The kids selling $148 worth of lemonade one Saturday afternoon this summer. But that was just the beginning. The kids' parents encouraging Bea, Jack, and their siblings to donate their big haul to Cincinnati Children's Hospital, an organization near and dear to Bea and her mother.
I got a brave stripe, like my mommy.
When Bea was just 6 months old, she received a life-saving liver transplant there from her mother, Hillary. This past Friday, Hillary asked her friends and family to match the kids' donation to the hospital.
The hope is that we can end the wait for all of these people waiting for transplants.
And in just a few short days, the donations pouring in faster than Bea and Jack could ever pour their lemonade.
They came in at $10,000. We hit $15,000. $20,000.
And now, thanks to donations from local businesses, pledges from celebrities like Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper, Bea's lemonade stand is serving up more than $125,000 in charity. Though she may not totally grasp just how much money that is, the world's sweetest lemonade stand CEO knows what she wants to do with it.
Then we give it to the doctor to make people healthy.
Wow, love
what
them.
A wonderful story. And one more note here, because they are raising money for everyone still waiting for their match on the organ donor list. Now, Bea, and I should say B rather, and her mom are hoping for someone to be their money match and match the $125,000 they have raised with the lemonade stand.
B said, be the match. How about that? We love that story so much. Hey, coming up, we've got a look at what's going on in the day ahead.
Plus, the first cannabis cafe opens in West Hollywood. More after this.
Here is what to watch out for today. President Trump will receive an intelligence briefing and meet with the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, this afternoon.
It is the last day for Democratic presidential hopefuls to qualify for the fourth debate, which takes place on October 15th. 12 candidates are currently qualified based on ABC News analysis.
And ace pitcher Max Scherzer will take the mound for the Washington Nationals as they take on the Milwaukee Brewers for the National League wild card game tonight.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the Debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. Finally, anticipation is high for the opening of a first-of-its-kind restaurant in West Hollywood.
Today, the city becomes home to the country's only cannabis cafe. The Lowell Cafe has a special license allowing patrons to smoke marijuana or eat cannabis-infused edibles. The chef has created dishes that complement cannabis, like pairing wine with food. Apart from the pot, the cafe will be just like any other restaurant and bar, except it will have a special air filter system to suck in the smoke, so you're just not inundated, with the smoke.
And earlier, I thought this was where like food would be infused with.
Oh,
weed,
no.
You
Yeah,
said,
they can't do that. Health officials said, nah. You can have the edibles, that's fine. But you can't put the pot in the food.
Gotcha.
Can't make the pot brownies and serve them up.
So they're hoping this is like a tourist attraction thing. Would you visit?
I don't know if I would visit, and I'm not really sure about you putting me on the spot. No, I'm just kidding. What I will say is that apparently they got a whole big menu that we talked about the food and wine pairings, like food and cannabis pairings, and wings, lots of wings, nachos. I'm serious.
I know, but also like
but
first
gourmet.
of its kind. But like you said, this is just the first.
Yeah,
of probably
more are coming.
Exactly.
They've already got some that are in the works. There you go. Hey, that is it for us on this Tuesday morning.
October 1st. Have a great day.
Have a good one.